All right, welcome everyone. Eugene here, Hughes Motorized, Flux Core Welding 101. All right, so this video is all about the Flux Core Welding. What I want to share with you is my wisdom, and it's not that much, but I want to share with you the basics of Flux Core Welding, how you can set one of these bad boys up. What are the advantages of a flux core welder? Well, one, it's cheap, but what are the pros and cons of using a flux core welder? What sort of things you're going to struggle with? Then I want to get into safety equipment that you're going to need. I want to set you up for success, and an important part of safety as well is knowing when you have a good weld and knowing when you have a bad weld. That's all the difference between a piece of metal coming apart on one of your little motorized creations and ripping off your nut sack or going into your eye hole. We don't want that, do we? That you're going to have a bad time that happens. So I want to go over that with you. Then I want to go over the basics of welding. Now, in that, you're not going to watch this video and just boom, go weld. You can definitely go make some sparks. But what I want to give you is a list of things that you're going to need to study up on. Take time to learn how to weld. Take time to learn what a good weld is. Take time to do some destructive testing of your welds. That way you're going to have confidence. When you weld something up, you're going to know that, hey, this is good weld, bad weld, this was too hot, this was too cold, we didn't get penetration. You need to know about these things here. So let's go ahead and go on. All right, so Flux Core Welder. This is the $87 El Cheapo Deluxe. I did that on my last video, did an unboxing and just basic setup on it here. I'm going to go over with how to set up flux core welders in general, how they work. So, okay, so basically what we've got here, this is an arc welder, okay? So you have your welding torch here, the gun here, and you have the wire that comes out of it here, and that's an electrode. The wire is the electrode. It's also the filler wire. Okay, so with welding, arc welding, what you're doing, you're using electricity. So we plug this into 110 volts. It has a powerful transformer in it. It converts it into DC electrode negative, meaning the electrode here is the negative. And then you have what's called the working clamp, which provides the positive. We can go ahead and connect that to the table or your workpiece directly, whatever works best for you. Okay, so you will turn this on. You have your on-off switch, you have your power settings here, and when you're ready to weld, what you're doing is you're completing the circuit. Okay, so the electrode has a current, a path, which then meets up with the current from the working clamp here, and when it does, it creates the arc. With your flux core welder, you have flux inside, flux core. The core of the wire has flux in it, and then as it burns, as it creates the puddle, it releases a gas, and that helps shield your weld and keeps impurities out of the weld so you get a better integrity of the weld. So let's look here on this welder here. So we've got our power cord here, we have our working clamp, we have the gun here, and it comes out of this here. The cable that feeds the gun comes out of here. It has the wire for the trigger switch, which turns it on and off. Well, actually, with this one here only turns on the feed mechanism, which feeds the wire. Now, you also have a control here where you control the speed of the wire feed. The trigger only controls the motor for the feed. As soon as you turn this on, everything is hot, it's energized, and the electrode and the ground clamp, they are hot. You got fire in the hole. So as soon as you turn this baby on, even without touching the trigger and touch the electrode to anything that's connected electrically through the working clamp, you're going to be making sparks. So be careful you don't hurt your eyes. So treat it accordingly to, with your welder, be careful to make sure that yours doesn't work like this. If it does, you damn sure better have some eye protection on whenever your electrode gets near a working surface that's got the working clamp on it. So with this one here, we basically have 4 power settings. You got minimum and maximum, and then 1 and 2. So minimum 1 is the lowest, minimum 2 going a little bit higher, maximum 1 your third highest setting, and then maximum 2 it would be the highest setting on it. Now the higher you have this set, the faster you want to feed your wire. So if you have this set on maximum 2, you might even want to go up to 7 or so. It depends. That's why we've got some adjustments on it here, so you can dial it in according to the job that you're doing. When you go to a minimum 1, you may even want to be as low as 3. So it just depends upon the job, depends upon your technique, etc. So that's why we've got all of these settings on it here. And you've got this light here, which means that you've overheated it and it needs to cool down. With these here, they have what they call a duty cycle, meaning you just can't sit there and weld all day long. After a while, it's going to heat up. It's not going to be a big deal. If you've got a lot of welding to do, for the most part, you're not going to be hitting that trigger all day long. You're going to be starting and stopping, repositioning, moving things around. So this wouldn't be suitable for a heavy production welder. Now let's show how the wire feeds here and on the top here. We're going to open the top. Let's take a look inside. Okay, so on this one here, we've got this little chrome button here. There's another one here on the other side. There's a rod that goes all the way through. You push it forward, lean up. We get into the compartment here. Now we're going to be putting in some .030 flux core wire. Okay, so with this, be careful. What do we got? What do we got? The wire is right here. It comes through here on the top. There's a hole in the spool. As soon as you undo that wire, it's going to want to, it'll do a bird's nest thing on you. It'll unravel on you, and it'll unravel quick. Now looking at this one here, we've got the post here. The spool of wire is going to go down on the post. Let's go ahead and just pop the hole there. Okay. So with this here, the wire is going to be wrapped around counterclockwise to go into this little tube here. You can see the tube here on top of my finger. That's where the wire goes to get to the torch here. So we're going to be real careful. As soon as we pull this bad boy through, it is live. It's wanting to unravel. Let's clip it. So we push it in there. There's a little bitty hole right here where the wire goes into. We're going to push it in and guide it in with my fat finger. Oh, come on. All right, so we got that in there. Boy, honey, that is tight. There we go. It's loosened up a little bit. You don't want this too tight. All right, so we got it pushed in a little ways here. We got it pushed in a little ways here. We can now get this, I call it the clamping roller. You've got your feed roller here that has the motor on it. That's what turns and shoots the wire out of the to the gun. We're going to put this over here. Now this here is spring loaded. You can see this part here. Okay, now with flux core, you don't want to get this too tight. You get this too tight and that'll pinch it against your feed roller, and it can kind of damage the inside of the flux core there. We want this here just as loose as we can get away with and still have it feed. But we'll get onto that later. So basically what holds this on here, this acts kind of as a brake. Okay, so we've got this large plastic piece on this one, which goes on next. We then have a spring. And then we have the nut, which is going to press down on the spring. And this here serves kind of as a tension brake. That way when you're feeding wire, it's turning, and when it stops, it doesn't continue to turn and wire unravels and you get that bird's nest thing here. So, okay, so we don't have any wire coming out of the gun. What we're going to do here, we're going to turn it on. We're going to turn the wire feed speed up as high as it'll go. Okay, and we have a problem. This here is too tight. I've got some paper in here. There we go. We finally got some wire out. Okay, I want to see if I'm adjusted good here. We're good there. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to set up the tension. And I've got my glove finger on here, and I'm going to push on the wire, pushing out. Ideally, you want this little adjustment here to be as light as you can get away with. And I'm going to hold it with the glove. Okay, I can just barely stop it with the glove, so that is good. Flux Core Welding is a little bit more of a dirtier weld. You're going to deal with a residue, a soot, and you're going to get a bit of splatter. That's just a part of it. Flux Core Welding is an economical way to get into welding. For those of you who are wanting to weld up your little motorized toys, build some accessories, do some modifications, these here can work. The number one challenge you're going to run into with this here is burning holes in your thinner metal. So you're going to need to practice, practice, practice. Okay, so we're going to weld up some pieces here today. And in order to get a good weld, you need to clean the mill scale off of the metal. Make sure there's no paint, no grease, no oil. This here is a dull gray color, and once we grind it away using the angle grinder here, we're going to grind away the mill scale. Then we'll have a good clean bare metal to weld with. So we're going to weld, do a T-joint here and do a fillet weld on one side of this here. This is 16 gauge. Safety equipment. What are you going to need to go with your welder here? Okay, well it is welding related, because if you're going to be doing some welding, you're going to be needing to do some cutting and some grinding, and you're going to need one of these angle grinders. Okay, this motherfucker here is evil and wicked as a stripper girlfriend. I guarantee it. These things have a lot of power. They're 13,000 RPMs. You have a safety on this. Leave the goddamn safety on there. I don't need no fucking safety. I don't need the handle. I just want to get in there. Well, I dropped my angle grinder one day and with the flap disc on it. Didn't think about it. Picked up, used it. Great. Picked it up, used it again. I was grinding on a piece of plate steel. The flap disc exploded because it had a crack in it. Exploded. It hit, it knocked it, it basically shot out of my hand, came across, skipped across this hand here, took a nice little chunk out here, had a nice gash here. I was counting fingers, okay? So I learned the hard way, use your damn safety equipment, okay? You got to respect these things here. Leave your guard on, leave your handle on, and I'm going to tell you, wear some safety glasses that fit against your skull, above the eyes, below the eyes. Get you a face shield here. They don't cost that much. Trust me, it's better than reconstructive surgery. Wear your safety glasses. Get you some of these here. You'll need these I recommend that you wear these when you're welding. Now these here are readers. Here, if you're old fart like me, you need some magnification. You can also get the non-magnifying ones, whatever. But get you some good safety glasses and a face shield, particularly when you're using the angle grinder. Come on, baby. Spend 40 bucks, get you a good welding helmet. I'll have links for everything down below. Okay, this here is going to shield your face. You still want to wear eye protection. I've been welding. I've had a piece of red hot slag shit shoot up, hit me in the face, hit the inside of this here, even with it got up inside there and bounced back towards my eye. You don't want to be picking red hot metal out of your eye. I promise, okay? You're going to regret it. Good welding gloves. I've got a nice welding apron here. Not so much for the welding, but yeah, with Flux Core, you're getting a lot of pop, spits, and sputters. But using a cutting disc on this bad boy here throws a lot of sparks on. I can't tell you how many shirts I've got that have caught on fire or burned holes in from cutting. So you've been warned. 20 bucks for a leather apron. Get you some good gloves. Okay, so we've gone over that. Now, another aspect of safety I want you to think about. You're riding your little creation, your little motorized bike, mini bike, go-kart, scooter, whatever. You've welded something up. Well, if you're just getting started, odds are you're not that good of a welder, okay? It takes a while to learn. It's a process. It's not an event. You just don't buy a welder and go out and weld and do it safely. So you're riding your little creation, a weld fails. It could hurt you. It could kill you, okay? So you need to learn what is a safe weld. What's a good weld? Check the link below on my website. I'm going to give you a list of some videos I recommend that you watch, some websites I suggest you go to, so you can identify what a good weld is. There's some terminology that you need to know. Undercut, what does a hot weld look like? What does a cold weld look like? What about the heat affected zone? Now that's important. When you're welding on something, what's working in our favor, the heat that melts the metal, it also weakens it. You'll see the metal will change color around the weld. Well, that's the weakest point now of your metal. So you want to be careful, and you want to understand the safety, the terminology, what's part of a good weld, what's part of a bad weld. You want to weld some pieces of steel together, then you want to put it in a vise and beat the hell out of it. You want to cut into it. You want to take a look at it. You want to see where you're getting penetration. Look on the back side. Do some investigative work on your welds. That way, when you're welding, you're going to have confidence in your competence. You're going to know what you're doing. Then you start welding on your creations. So please take that little bit of time. Take 2 weeks. It's worth it. Spend some time, check out some of the videos I'm linking to on my website, and look on YouTube. Weld.com has got some good ones. Miller, they sell welding machines. They've got some good tutorial videos. Hobart has some. Lincoln has some. Take your time and study. This is it's a science. It's an art. It's well worth the investment. Okay, so we got our ground clamp here. We're going to clamp it on the table here. Got that clamp. So what we're going to do here, I've got this piece of angle iron here. We've still got the mill scale on that. We need to take that off and get it down to clean metal here. Need to go ahead and clean this up here. Okay, I'm going to put on my face shield here so my face stays pretty. Okay, so got this bad boy cleaned up. We've got it held together here. So with flux core welding, you want to make sure to keep your wire about 3/4 of an inch out of the tip. If you get it too far out, you're not going to get a good weld. It'll come out too cold. The wire will spatter a lot and you won't get a good joint. And if you get it if you have it too close in, well, one, you're not going to be able to see so much here. Now, I'm looking at this. This here to me is a gun, and I want to aim that right at the joint there. I want to hold it at about a 90-degree angle to the area we want to weld. And if I weld like that, well, I can't see so much. So I'm going to bring it back about just a little bit here, and I'm going to drag. So I'm going to start my weld here and then slowly pull it back, and I'm going to drag it towards me. And I'm going to basically go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And let's see here. We're going to put this on minimum 2. I think that will be a good starting point. And I'm putting my wire feed, at about number 4, 4 out of 10. All right, let's turn this on. Okay, we are hot to go. I'm going to close my welding hood. I'm close to my workpiece, closing my welding helmet, and let's make some sparks. And there you go. We've got a pretty good weld there. I need a little bit more practice here, but however, that is going to hold, okay? That is going to hold. That is some decent welding. Okay, so here's a piece of, I do believe this here is 18 gauge. This here is about 43 thousandths here. And this would be something like you would use to make a gas tank with here. What I did is I made a 90 in my brake here. And what we're going to do, we're going to go in, we're going to clean the rust and dirt off here. And we're going to prep this side here. Okay, so we've got it cleaned here. I put a little bit of a bevel on this here too. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a tack here tack there and then start my weld. Okay, what's going to help me here? One of the biggest issues people have with thin gauge metal, and this is about as thin as you want to try to tackle. This will be a test. So if you try to weld up some 18 gauge and you're burning through it with a flux core welder, relax, okay? This is, if you can master this, you're going to be able to master flux core welding. It takes time. It's one of the biggest issues people have is burning through thinner metals here. So you got to earn your wings. This is going to be a test here. I've got my welder set at the lowest setting. I've got the thinnest wire. I'm using .030 wire, particularly if you're going to work on anything, I'd even say 16 gauge steel and under and thinner, you're going to want to use .030 wire. So we've got the thinnest wire we can get, one of the thinner wires that are out there for flux core. We've got our rig set up, and with your thinner wires you may even want to have your stick out, as it's called, the amount of electrode, the wire out of the nozzle up to 3/4 of an inch. That way it'll cool it off a little bit here. But let's go ahead and give it a shot. Oh yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at the job that I did here. My hands aren't that steady here. I'm out of practice, okay? This is a fair job considering what I'm doing here. I don't need a big, thick weld. If this was for a gas tank, I would be, for the most part, I'd be happy with that, okay? We can come back and clean that slag off. They do make an anti-spatter spray, but to me it doesn't do everything here. That's a fair weld considering we're on thin gauge steel. If it was a heavy steel, I'd want a thicker bead here, but considering that we're flux core welding, I'm going to give that a thumbs up. That would work fine, and I'd be happy with it. Now, what it did do, because this here gets so hot, it warped the metal. Now what I can do in order to alleviate that problem of warpage is do a bunch of small welds. It takes more time, but if you want to weld something up and you don't want it warping, that's what you're going to have to do here. Okay, so that's something else for you to educate yourself on, is what do you do to keep it from warping. Let's go on. We're going to do one more weld. just to do a quick examination here. Really need to get my wire wheel out and clean that up. But as you can see here on the bottom, you can tell that we got some decent penetration there. We're good there. And then looking here on the back side here as well, you can see that I've got just a little bit of blistering here, that I've got good penetration there. That is going to hold, boys and girls. Okay, so I'm going to give that one a thumbs up. We did good there. Okay, so we're going to do what's called a butt weld. And with the butt weld, basically you're just butting two pieces of steel together, and then we're going to put a seam right down the join there. Okay. Okay, so to do this one here, I want to hold my torch at a 90-degree angle. Okay, I'm going to want to hold my torch at a 90-degree angle and then angle it back a little bit, and we're going to travel in this direction here. We're going to travel back towards me. So we're going to be dragging here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put me a tack weld here, and then a tack weld there, and then I'll get my clamps out of the way. Okay, the reason for this little backer here of brass is I don't want to weld this piece to the table here. So if any of this here goes through, I'm not going to be welding it to the table because it won't bond with the brass. Okay, I'm getting a bit hot here. I've already burned a couple of holes. I think I fixed them. So I'm just going to do this pulsing it. With arc welding, the longer the run you do, the hotter it gets, and it'll even blow open before you even get the wire to it. In your direction of travel, let's say I start here and I start going with a longer run, ahead of it, it'll do what's called a keyhole, and it'll open up, and then you've got to slow down and then go back and fill that in. Okay, so there we go here. There we go. Went ahead and welded this up here. Is this absolute perfection? No, but that just goes to show you that I need more practice. I have not done hardly any flux core welding, and I'm going to tell you what, it's rather difficult to weld flux core on metal as thin as this here. Like I said, this here is 18 gauge steel. 0.043 I think is what it is here. So this is really going to test you, but once you get with practice where you can do this, and if I keep doing this here a bit more, I'm going to get pretty damn good at here. And so I'm going to give myself a thumbs up. I'm going to give myself a solid B. Really, this here is a C plus here. But hey, if you like the video, Give me a thumbs up, click subscribe. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Bye now.